Todd from MLB Trade Rumors here. Today's Thursday, February 27th. Let's get you caught up. This morning started with a big, heavy dose of deja vu for Yankees fans. That's because the 2019 team was known for overcoming injuries, finding players where they had to, getting those stars back on the field whenever they could, but just gutting it out and finding star-like production from anybody. But the point was never to have to do that over and over again. And yet, here we are, not even out of the month of February, and we're seeing a rash of new maladies out of that Yankees team. We already talked about Luis Severino going in for Tommy John surgery. James Paxton going to miss a big chunk of the season. That's two big pieces of the rotation. But what about that star-studded lineup? Yes, folks, Giancarlo Stanton, the star outfielder / DH, acquired to bring a whole bunch of pop, twin tower alongside Aaron Judge. Let's not freak out just yet, but he has a calf strain. Anyone that's followed the Yankees, anyone that's followed Stanton's career knows this is a guy that has had his tweaks over time. He's usually performed when he's been healthy, but it's the type of thing that does have you worried, especially since Judge himself is also dealing with what's hoped to be a minor shoulder injury this spring. Now, Stanton only played in 18 games last year owing to biceps and knee injuries, so at least this isn't the exact same sort of problem that he dealt with then. But this guy is a former MVP. He's a huge part of that lineup, and missing him for even a decent stretch could be a problem, especially since Aaron Hicks is also slated to miss time at the beginning of the season. Obviously, the Yankees are not going to have their first choice outfield. So now what do the Yanks do in left field and in the DH slot, the spots where Stanton was going to line up? Mike Tauchman, Mike Ford, you might see some Clint Frazier out there, and oh yeah, that Miguel Andujar guy. They just keep coming with bodies in the Yankees organization. They've got a lot of interesting players. Whether or not Andujar can play in left, suddenly there's room for him in the DH slot. Frazier now has an opening, a guy many thought would be traded. So suddenly opportunities abound for those players. No doubt this is still a super talented roster on paper. Even if Stanton misses time early, obviously they will be cautious in making sure he gets back to full health. Thankfully, most of the other injury updates we received yesterday were fairly promising. The Braves say they're not very worried about Freddie Freeman. The Mets say that it looks like J.D. Davis dodged a bullet. And Julio Teheran, the Angels' new starter, is hopefully only going to miss a couple days with hamstring tightness. That's all good. There was also one significant contract reportedly agreed to yesterday, although it's still not official. Freddy Peralta, the right-hander of the Brewers, has reportedly struck a 5-year deal that's going to only promise him about $15.5 million. Will also give that team a pair of club options that could bring the total up to about $30 million over 7 years. Not a lot of money, of course, for the team, life-changing money for a pitcher that really has not fully established himself in the majors. So what do we make of this? Well, it's the second such extension we've seen. The White Sox signed lefty Aaron Bummer to an almost identical deal. Bummer's had a little more big league success, but either way, you're looking at younger guys with really bright futures, really big arms, but still some speculation about just how things will play out. Not the type of extensions that we have typically seen. In most cases, players this early in their career that have signed have done so because they had superstar type potential as everyday players. Now we're seeing it with guys that have mostly pitched in relief roles. It's a bit of a new frontier in some ways, but really in baseball, over the past 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, we've kind of thrown everything out the window. Where teams see value and they see opportunity, they will go. Remember, we just had a market that was completely full of blockbuster signings. You had young guys getting big payouts. You had established stars getting paid. You had mid-level free agents getting nice, solid contracts. Teams don't want to have to pay that money unless they have to. So, with Peralta reportedly joining Bummer in the list of guys that have signed these interesting young extensions, what might that mean for the market? ESPN.com's Jeff Passan noted yesterday that this may just be the start. We could see teams go after those young star-like players. another Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies type deal. We could definitely see that pursued. Certainly those mid-arbitration guys, they're always on the docket for potential, or guys that are potentially hitting the free agent market after the year. But what about these Bummer/Peralta type deals? What about a guy like Peralta who's got huge upside, but also really not much of a floor? You don't even know what you're going to get out of him, but you can imagine this deal capturing huge value. Every team has some players like that. Every team out there could potentially pursue these kinds of contracts. It could really make things interesting in camp, and it's also going to pose some challenges to the MLB Players Association, which is already looking at a situation where we had many star players ink big deals last winter, keeping them away from eventual free agencies. It's an interesting situation to watch, and it all ties into the broader labor issues with a couple more years to go before the end of this collective bargaining agreement. There's certainly many factors at play. This is just one more episode in that. So stay tuned. We could have more news over the coming weeks. That's pretty significant, even though most of the big free agents are already off the board. Subscribe below, like below. Join us at MLBTradeRumors.com for more.